An independent school in Scotland has come under fire after it had parents investigated by social workers after they fought teachers' attempts to affirm their daughter's transgender identity. So essentially the school reported parents to the social services because they had been misgendering their child.
Well, George Watson's College in Edinburgh called social services in late 2020, so some years ago, after a long-running dispute with the parents who wanted to adopt a watchful waiting approach on the advice of psychologists. That's according to them. So was the school wrong to report them?
Well, we're joined now by the founder of Our Duty Group, who support parents around transgender issues, Keith Jordan. Keith, this is an interesting case, and I imagine it's something that a lot of parents and teachers have to deal with on a regular basis around the country. If a child turns up to school and they tell their teacher that their parents are misgendering them and they'd like to go by a different gender, a different name, etc., etc., can teachers then actually report those parents to the social services?
I think it's crazy that schools feel that they need to behave that way. Social services should really only be involved where there's a genuine safeguarding risk to the child. And the schools who believe in this idea that a child can be transgender have got this completely upside down. And I think a big problem that happened at this George Watson's College, I mean, this poor family have been enduring this for 4 years, trying to solve this problem. And all the while, the school has not been supporting the parents in their pursuit of the best interests of their child. That poor girl, as having the idea that she could be a boy, reinforced by the school, reinforced by LGBT Youth Scotland, against the wishes of the parents. And I'm glad to see in this particular case that social services took one look at it and said, yeah, no, fine, carry on as you were. Especially since that's occurring in Scotland, which we know has got a bit of a interesting history when it comes to dealing with transgender issues.
Isn't that the system working as intended then? That there must be some examples of really horrific agony between disagreements with parents and children where it could get to a point of safeguarding concern. Can't you see a situation whereby it might be appropriate to refer that to an authority? In this case, clearly, it wasn't a concern. They passed it on. That was the system working.
In this instance, it did appear to work, yes. And I think the referral to social services was like a bump in the road on this really long journey that this family had been on. And I think the whole idea that the school even felt that it was within their remit to report to social services was wrong-headed.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because imagine if you were parents and you decided to take this watch and waiting approach to your child who's claiming they're a different gender and feelings of gender dysphoria and so on. You've decided this as parents, and then a school gets involved and you're reported to the social services. That does seem to me an outrageous overreach on the part of teachers.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's because these schools have got a complete misunderstanding of the nature of what happens when a child identifies as transgender. And that is because they've been told by organisations such as LGBT Youth Scotland that they need to, celebrate a child with a transgender identity. They need to affirm their identity. And of course, none of these things are true. That's only the belief of the ideology of organisations like LGBT Youth Scotland, and there are various other organisations dotted around the country selling the same snake oil. The reality is that if a child identifies as transgender at school, there has been a safeguarding failure. It might not have necessarily happened.
In every single case, Keith?
In every single case, I was going to qualify that by saying that safeguarding failure might not necessarily have occurred at school. It might have occurred in the privacy of that child's bedroom if they were online in spaces that are not helpful to them. But the moment a child starts thinking to themselves that they are transgender, something has already gone wrong.
That seems like quite an extreme comment to me. We all saw the tragic case of the murder of Brianna Gai last year. She was a 16-year-old transgender girl. I think society accepted that she was a transgender girl at the age of 16. In your view, was she not?
No, indeed. In my view, he was a 16-year-old boy, and it's very tragic what happened to him.
Sorry, are you saying that Brianna Gai was a 16-year-old boy?
Yes.
I think that's an appalling thing to say. An appalling thing.
Well, I'm sorry. It's I believe that's a statement of fact.
Well,
on that note, thank you very much for joining us, Keith Jordan, who is the founder of our deputy group. A spokesman for George Watson's College, the school we're talking about, said social and gender transitioning are amongst the most challenging and polarising issues facing schools today. We've always worked collaboratively with parents and apologise to those involved in this case for any distress caused by what are difficult and challenging circumstances.